So he started the Motorsport Management program at Belmont Abbey College and graduated in 2010. He started working at Charlotte Motor Speedway as an account executive and then the digital marketing manager, where he was basically paid to have fun, which is really awesome and we want to hear more about. Later, he decided he wanted to give back and found that Belmont Abbey was in need of a program coordinator. So for the past 4 years, he has been teaching and helping others achieve their dreams. He has grown the program from 15 students to 51, and he just launched an MBA program with a concentration in motorsports, which is very cool. So thank you, Quinn. And then next to him, we have Joe Dotson, which many of you know, graduated last year. Yes, you guys can cheer for him, it's okay. He majored in English, and yes, majored in English last year. He has been accepted to the University of Cincinnati for graduate study in sport administration and sport management. His summers in college were spent interning as an operations and athletic management intern at one of the largest basketball camps in the country. As an athlete here at Christendom, he worked as the game day operator and worked alongside the SID. He also served as game media director. And Joe is currently working as an assistant athletic director at Walsingham Academy in Williamsburg, Virginia. Outside of work, he enjoys staying active, reading, and hanging out with his fiancée, Claire. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for coming back. All right, and on our screen here, we have Sean Kiely, who studied at Christendom from 04 to 06 before finishing his degree in economics at the University of Oregon in 2008. He is currently in his 16th season with the Portland Trail Blazers, serving as the basketball strategy analyst since March 22. In this role, Sean works closely with the basketball operations staff on salary cap management and roster planning. He started with the team. By the way, I got to talk to Sean months ago, and I heard his whole story, which is really fascinating. So this is the one-sentence version of it. But he started with the team as a corporate sponsorship intern, and then interned in basketball operations. He was hired full-time because he worked very hard and met the right people and did the right things. And he was hired full-time as the manager of scouting, where he focused primarily on the NBA draft, and served as the general manager of the team's NBA G League affiliate. It's all kind of foreign language to me here, honestly, so I hope you guys will educate us.
It's impressive.
Sean lives out in Portland, which is why he's on the screen today, with his wife Ashley and their 2 sons. So give our guests a round of applause before we begin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Sorry, guys. Before we get started, need some water. Okay, so let's begin kind of at the beginning. So what led you to kind of where you are now, a career in sports in general? Quinn, why don't you start us off?
The economic collapse of 2008. Yeah.
Tell us more.
Yeah, tell you more. Well, so I found myself graduating from here, got into real estate, and then the economy collapsed. So real estate, bad idea. Had a young family at that point, and then so found out about the motorsport management program at Belmont Abbey, and moved my family back east again from California in 2008. Spent 2 years there, got a second bachelor's degree. My degree here transferred right over, and so it's knocked out. Most people who transfer in have to still take theology and English classes. Well, I already had all those taken care of here at Christendom, so kind of worked out. Graduated from there and then started working at the Speedway, Charlotte Motor Speedway, right after that, and so spent the next decade having fun. Started dialing for dollars was my very first job. It was, if you got someone to buy tickets from you, you got a portion of the money. So I dialed a lot, and, but through hard work and effort, got an account management position there. You had dedicated accounts that you kind of followed up on year after year. And then after 3 or 4 years, kind of basically moved up in the digital marketing space at our track. And then just every single Google ad that you see, I was in charge of for Charlotte, and basically tracking all that, monetizing it, making sure the money is spent correctly, and then in between everything else, helping out at events, selling tickets, and just being present for operations and event day management. We have 3 facilities at Charlotte. So we have an NHRA drag strip. It's 4 wide. It's the first one in the country. So we have the 4 wide nationals actually coming up the end of this month. And then there's also a dirt track, and then the main speedway itself. and about 2,000 acres that Charlotte kind of encompasses. And so a lot of fun, a lot of long hours, get to know people really well. But yeah, so that's, and then from that, kind of transitioned into teaching. Like I said, Belmont Abbey was looking for a coordinator. Was able to kind of transition into a assistant professor position, and then also kind of give back. So still get to go to the track, still have fun. In fact, that description I think I wrote from the Rolex 24 Hours down in Daytona in January. I was like, oh shoot, I need to send that up there. So just kind of hammering it out in the pits.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Is that where the picture was taken too?
Yeah, that was where the picture was taken.
Okay, excellent.
Needed a nice background. So.
Yes, yes.
So,
okay,
yeah.
awesome. By the way, I realize that you all can't quite see me.
Okay.
Let me move here so I'm not. I'm like in your line of sight. Okay.
All right, no worries.
Sorry. Thank you, everybody. All right, Joe, tell us how you got into sports in general and your job at Walsingham.
Just kind of a kid who didn't want to grow up, kid who loved sports, who just kept on that was the first thing that I kind of knew is I grew up playing sports my whole life. I mean, and it's just I knew pretty early on, I can still kind of remember the moment. It was in 8th grade, and it was just I don't want to stop. And it was kind of like a God just kind of I don't know, I just felt kind of called to it, and it's the one thing that never really has changed throughout my life. It's just a lot of things have changed. A lot of my opinions, a lot of I've gone through a lot of change in my life, but that's kind of the one thing that's been such a constant in my life is my love of sports. And so it's just, and choosing where I was going to go to college, I don't know how I ended up here, seeing as there was no sport management degree. I was
Sure.
this close to going to Shenandoah for the sport management degree, but it's just now you gotta go. God's now you gotta go to Christendom, and it's just all right, fair enough. We'll see what happens. And so I applied for a job in the athletic department my freshman year. It's a very competitive position. I didn't get it, and so basically I just I hounded Coach Quest and volunteered until basically he felt compelled to give me a position. And so did a couple things in the gym, the athletic department, got to work as the assistant to the SID, and did the game media director thing, and implemented a new live streaming system in our YouTube channel. And then my senior year I did athletic marketing, so a whole bunch of different things, and it's just I had a blast doing all of them. And so the beauty of my role at Walsingham right now is that I'm doing a combination of all three of those, of everything that I've done plus a lot more, and I'm having an absolute blast doing it. And it's something I don't have as much of the rising up right now, seeing as how I just left here last year. But I hope I want to keep pursuing this road, and hopefully grow in my pursuit to just work in athletics and be that same kid.
Yeah. Never grow up, Joe.
Never grow
up. Awesome. All right, so Sean, I read your one sentence, but tell us a little bit about your journey, and especially, making the decision to leave Christendom and head back to Oregon.
Sure. Kristen, thank you again for having me, but I just wanted to, before I get into it, I just wanted to say, I don't know if there are any Lady Crusader basketball players in attendance tonight, but I just wanted to say congratulations on winning a national championship earlier this month. That was pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Catherine Thomas, 46 against Penn State, 7 threes. Miranda Keller, MVP of the title game. Mary Penfather, 102 threes this year, 39% clip. We got shooters at Christendom College. That's pretty cool. I hope that means free drinks for life for all the ladies on the team.
Yes.
So I wanted to say congratulations. Yes, absolutely. So what led me to my career in sports? Well, I think it started really. It's been a lifelong journey for me. Learned long ago that I wasn't going to be able to play professional sports. But I always loved it, and I played growing up every sport I could play, and dedicated a lot of time to it. Waking up in the morning, checking box scores, researching on the internet, doing everything that I could, just soaking it all in, and often to the dismay of my parents. They were getting a little concerned that I was spending too much time studying sports and reading about it and digging in more on that than I was my academics.
Yeah.
But one time, I remember this. This really started this was really a catalyst that helped me and get me to where I am today. Actually, I was 16 years old. I was studying for the SAT. I was upstairs, and my parents had some of their neighbor friends over, and they were drinking a little wine and having a good time down there. And I walked down, and one of my neighbors said to my dad, he said, "So, what's Sean going to do after he graduates from college? What's his plan?" And my dad goes, "I really think Sean's going to work one day in professional sports."
Wow.
And right then, that clicked for me. Like a light bulb went on. Like it almost gave me the okay. Like, okay, you can go do this. And I hadn't quite conceptualized that could be a thing until he said it. And from that moment on, it's been in the back of my mind, and it was a goal of mine. So I would say, and he didn't know I was there. He had no idea. And I recounted the story to him actually recently, and he had no recollection of it at all. But I said that was a major catalyst in me wanting to pursue this as a career.
That's incredible. Awesome.
Yeah, and long story short, I was able to play sports at Christendom, played on the basketball team for a couple of years with Patrick Quest. It was unbelievable. I was Coach Vanderwoody, incredible mentor of mine. But after a couple of years, I got homesick, like many do, and transferred back home to the University of Oregon, and was able to kind of finagle my way into an internship, and that has lasted 16 years.
Yes. Okay. So actually keep talking about that, because I was going to say,
Sure.
My next question is, what opportunities did you all take advantage of that kind of helped you along the way? And they could be totally unrelated to what you're doing now, but you saw it as super helpful, whether that's getting to know people, doing some networking, doing internships, etc. So Sean, keep talking about how you ended up with the internship there.
Sure. One of the main reasons why I was able to get this basketball operations internship was because I played basketball at Christendom. Because I had that on my resume, it just helped. But so I started off as a corporate sponsorship intern. I was able to kind of get an interview there, and I got that internship for the summer, and then that internship was coming to an end. And I had seen then recently, right towards the end of the summer, I saw an internship in basketball ops post, and I read it. It's scouting, it's analytics, and it's helping build the roster. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is like perfect. My childhood team worked out, like this would be incredible. So I applied for the job, didn't get it, or I didn't hear back. But I'd gotten friendly with one of our HR gals, and I asked her, I said, hey, what's the story on this basketball ops internship? And she said, I don't know anything about it, but you should email Chad Buchanan, who at the time was our director of college scouting. He's now the general manager of the Indiana Pacers. But she said, email him and ask him for an informational interview. And I was like, that sounds cool. I been to business school, been to 2 colleges. I'd never heard the term informational interview before in my life. And for me, it was transformative. It was like, it was a avenue in. And so I emailed Chad and got that informational interview. And because I was able to get in there with him and have that conversation, I was able to parlay that into an internship. So I think for me, one of the things that I was able to do is I just took advantage of informational interview. I think that's not praised enough. It's not talked about enough. 1 million kids go to business school every year and they never hear that phrase. I had never heard it. So I would encourage all, if in whatever career you're interested in, taking advantage of informational interviews, because they're non-threatening.
Yeah.
People receive them all the time, and if written well, often you can get a conversation with somebody. So that's something that I would suggest, and that's something that I was able to do.
Okay, awesome. So with informational interviews, the best way to kind of connect with people for those is, one, who do your parents know? 2, look on LinkedIn, who is working the job that you're interested in and what is it that you want to learn about. And so with an informational interview, you're simply asking them about their day-to-day work. So it's kind of like what we're doing up here. You're giving informational interviews to them. But when you get to have that personal connection with somebody, they are more likely to say, oh, okay, yeah, you're super respectful, you are responsible, you took initiative to come talk to me, and they start thinking, oh wait, I know somebody who's looking for somebody, and then they connect you. And of course, you know, it can, if you're in front of the right person, they can offer you something as well. So thanks for suggesting that. All right, Joe, tell us about some things that you took advantage of that you feel like has helped you.
So the biggest thing I think I took advantage of was my internship at Coach Wooten's basketball camp. It's run by Coach Joe Wooten, son of the legendary Morgan Wooten.
Oh.
It's it's the largest overnight basketball camp in the country. It is awesome. So I started as a athletic operations intern, and basically what it did two things for me really. One, I just got to network with people, get to meet basketball people, get to meet sports people in general. A lot of assistant athletic directors at D3 schools, a lot of basketball coaches at D3 schools, and because D1 coaches weren't allowed to be there for recruiting purposes.
Okay.
It sucks. They used to be able to come, they had Jay Wright, Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith. They all went to those camps, but then the NCAA put in all these rules, and so they couldn't come to them. But the type of legendary basketball camp that I was honored to be a part of, but I got to meet all of these basketball people, just get to know them, just get to see how they operate, and network with all these people who have gone on doing some pretty good things in the basketball world, and also got me used to working in a very fast-paced environment. From 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., it was nonstop basketball, nonstop work, but it was some of the best, and afterwards it was from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. / at midnight, but it was just networking and playing basketball with the other coaches and staff, and it got me very valuable skills in networking, valuable skills in just working in a very fast-paced environment for extended periods of time, which anyone working in athletics knows it's very fast-paced at times, and it's very long hours. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Okay. So I also want to point out that you came to me and told me about a really awesome job fair going on, and you went on your own to a huge sports career fair up in DC or Baltimore?
Yeah, it was at the University of Maryland.
University of Maryland. And so he comes in and tells me, he's like, hey, I just want to polish up my resume. I'm going to this thing and talking to all these huge sports teams. And, not much, it's not like you got a job offer out of it, but tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was really cool. I got to meet with a lot of recruiting coordinators for a lot of the University of Maryland, the Commanders, Wizards, Capitals, a lot of the powerhouse DC jobs, University of Navy, and just got to talk with them, got to meet with them. Nothing came out of it, but it was very valuable to meet them and network with them. Got their cards, got their numbers. I had a good conversation with the guy at the University of Navy because Coach Quest knows him actually.
Oh, nice.
So
that's awesome. You did that. And I also want to point out that both you and Sean have said you applied for something and didn't get it. And you didn't get the first thing that you went for. And so I love that both of you, stuck with it, and especially you, Joe, saying you hounded Coach Quest until he was compelled to give you something. So
yeah,
I think that's important to understand, that don't give up if you don't get the thing the first time. So even if it's just an on-campus job. So awesome. All right, Quinn, tell us about you and what you took advantage of.
Okay, take advantage of, kind of piggyback on what you just said here for a second. I like to refer to what you're talking about as pleasant persistence. It's
that's pretty,
I like that.
You just keep following up. Just one email being sent to someone, it's not going to get you anywhere. 2, 3, 4, 5, could be 15 to 20. I mean, seriously, don't get discouraged about it. When we had internships coming through the Speedway, especially for social media gigs, we get a stack this tall, of just applications. And the very first criteria on all these applications was, does it have a cover letter? Now, we never stated that, we never put that anywhere. That was just a random, arbitrary, does it have a cover letter, that we kind of just put on ourselves, and half the stack would disappear. I mean, all these things that you kind of get mentioned about, cover letters, polish up a resume, make sure it's not a generic cover letter that says, to whom it may concern. I'm really interested in sports. I like sports. Pick me. You know, that's, no, that's not going to work. You know, and don't try to the whole reversal of like, oh, I'm going to interview you. No, that's not going to work either. You know, just be personable. These informational interviews. You know, when you get anywhere up into the levels of sportdom, if you will, we all like to talk about ourselves. We just do. We all have an interesting story. Everyone started from somewhere that probably wasn't even related to sports, and have come into sports. No, I mean, I know guys who were accountants and now are like presidents of racing teams. Wow. You know, it's like, how'd that work? And so they're good with money. I mean, that's probably why. You know, because it takes a lot of money to run a race team, and you lose a lot of money, but it's still fun. But yeah, so you know, just informational interviews are fantastic. It's a small world. You know, that's another kind of almost comforting thing with Christendom. Let's be honest, we're all kind of in a bubble here. All right, I spent 4 years here in the early 2000s, and you know, you guys are here now. You know, I can go back in my day. You know, but it's a bubble. It's comfortable. It's nice. It's friendly. You see everyone. You know everyone. You come back here. I mean, heck, you know, your chef. Yeah, no, that's Ducky. You know, I went to school with him. You know, we went to Ireland together. Yeah, good times. You know, so it's great to see him again. You know, yeah, but with this, that's the same way in sports. It's a small world. The people who get involved in it and the people who are in it stay in it. And they move from one job to another position, to another team, to another track. You keep bumping into them, like, all over the place. You know, my wife got mad at me the other day. We were on, like, we just went up to the mountains near North Wilkesboro. I hear cars on track, you know, by the North Wilkesboro Speedway. I'm like, okay, we got to stop in. And yeah, I knew 5 people there, you know, and it was a random test day for Hoosier Tires, but, you know, it's just like, oh, hey, John, hey, Bill, you know, can I come down? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You know, but that's the thing. She's like, wow, you really do know everyone around here. Like, small world.
Yeah.
But yeah, informational interviews, word gets passed around. Because we have so many stacks of resumes, we have no clue who you are. And no matter what you write in there, and no matter how pristine your education might look, you gotta know somebody. And I hate to say that, but I mean, that's just kind of how it is. But you get to meet people through informational interviews, through putting yourself out there, through being pleasantly persistent. And yeah, I wouldn't just hijack that.
No, that was great. I loved it. I'm going to use that phrase. Yes. And just so you and Sean are aware, I was going to say we offer, but we require students to attend career prep courses throughout their entire 4 years here. So we're talking about that stuff, but we don't necessarily talk about informational interviews or pleasant persistence. So I will be adding that to classes.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Definitely.
Are there any other internships or jobs that you held that you feel really kind of propelled you?
So so my internships, when I went to Belmont, we required 3 internships. So of those 3 internships, basically my job came through knowing someone from an internship. So it wasn't directly related to the internships, but that's how I was able to, it was through a volunteering effort. Speedway's Children's Charities is the big kind of charity arm of SMI, Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, which owns Charlotte, Bristol, Vegas. We have like 13 tracks, but anyways, it's big. But running golf carts, you know, was post-race. So driving people from the track to their cars. It's like driving through a river of spawning salmon. I mean, it's just 100,000 people trying to leave a place, and you're trying to drive a golf cart through them.
Yeah.
It's stressful. But through the persistence and effort of, you know, just showing up and doing these things that no one really wants to do, you know, but with a smile on your face and, you know, to keep on trucking, you know, it kind of paid off. You know, that's how I got my first job. And it's okay to fail at an internship too. You know, I still see one of the guys that I interned for. I was his worst intern. I did almost nothing for him. It was supposed to be more of an independent study and like, you know, just led by myself to try to gain sponsorships for him. And I got bupkis. I got nowhere. It failed miserably. Didn't get any callbacks, got nothing out of it.
Love
But
that.
the thing I got out of it was realizing that I need more direction. You know, I'm the type of person, if I have a manager who's like pointing me, it's like, hey, you got to do X, Y, Z today, and, you know, make sure that this is packaged in this way. And I was like, okay, I can handle that. You know, sometimes just being let loose on your own, you know, you come to find out you either thrive in that type of situation or you completely collapse. And so it's good to learn that during an internship and not, you know, when your job's on the line.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Great.
All right. So let's transition into what is your day-to-day work like? Because it's obviously very different. You three are in very different, you know, areas of sports. So Joe, tell us a little bit about day-to-day.
Yeah, so my day-to-day, it's something different every day. Like Coach, if you work for Coach Quest, you know the randomness, right? It's the randomness of this stuff. But generally, I would say my mornings are filled with like office work that, like, you know, your emails, scheduling, like working with like very third-party providers like our Huddle and BSN for us. But it's in the mornings, it's generally a lot more office work, and then like in the afternoons, it's a lot of like, you know, getting ready for whatever events the afternoon holds, right? Like whether you have home games, whether you're getting ready to send teams off to away games. Like it's like I wish I could go into all of it. Like, I'm probably stating it really poorly because it's always something different. But that's like generally it's like mornings are like office administrative stuff, and then the afternoons are like a lot more active. I'm on my feet. I'm you know, and then I'm at practices talking to coaches and like at games talking to parents and like yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like it's definitely like my mom always said, like, if you have a desk job, you're gonna go drive yourself crazy.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
like so it's just to be able to be active, moving around, like talking with people, like and like spending time outside, getting fresh air. That's I look forward to going outside in the warm weather almost every day. But
Are you coaching as well?
I did do some coaching
Okay.
in the winter. I had to coach 2 teams, so that was
okay.
quite something. Our JJV girls basketball coach. Oh jeez.
It's just you can simply.
So basically, the coach that we had. What's up, man? Turn it on.
Oh.
There. So, good? Oh wow, that's different.
There we go.
It was really good from what I heard.
Yes.
As our JJV girls basketball coach, like all of a sudden, family emergency, it's empty. I've already agreed to help assist with our varsity basketball team, and it's just like we got no one. And so all of a sudden, my afternoons went from 1 practice a day to 2 practices and 2 games a day on game days. So it was definitely like getting home at 4:30 sometimes turned into getting home at 8:30 sometimes, you know. It's just, and it was a hustle. It was a lot, you know, but it's just one of those things that I had to do to make sure that the show went on, if you will. But yeah, it was, and I like coaching, like, I mean, the little girls, I mean, you've never lived until you've coached little girls basketball, I'll tell you what, man. Like, it's quite, adorable. It's something. It's like, it's more of a game of poker than a game of basketball. Like, it's
Sure.
But yeah.
So I'd love to know and actually for all 3 of you, we'll get back to day to day. Joe, do you get to kind of hire or bring on any of your students to help you that you're kind of like mentoring along the way so that I
wouldn't say that per se, but there are a few people where that, like a couple of my, like I also do a weight training class with our seniors. Basically, it's me and 8 seniors. We go lift every day. It's kind of fun. But
that's awesome.
But like there are a couple of them who are going into sports management, sports business, and we talk about that all the time. So and it's just like, yeah, like I'm starting my graduate degree in sport administration in the fall. And it's just like, and like this kid, he's going to Clemson for sport management, starting his bachelor's degree, and like so we talk about that all the time, and it's like it's a lot of fun. We've gotten pretty close. He's a really good kid.
That's awesome. Okay. All right, let's go back to day to day, and then I want to ask that same question of you all too. So Sean, tell us about your day to day. What does that look like?
Sure. Okay, so essentially what Kristen, I'll try to sum up a little bit what my job actually is. So my job is to help our general manager build our Trailblazer roster. And in particular, guiding him through the rules and regulations and contracts and trades and in-season management of the roster. So what we do is, my schedule is a little different based on the time of year, one in season versus the off season. And during the season, we're doing a lot of reviewing and building out in-season strategy for other teams to sort of see what other teams are looking for, how can we best potentially be a trade partner or take advantage of whatever particular situation that they're in. We're digging into contracts of players around the league. We're balancing constantly having enough players to play. Wow. In the NBA, particularly our team this year, we're extremely injured. And so what you have to, so there are these rules about how many players you have to have active versus inactive, and there's you have these two-way players that are partially minor league players but partially NBA players, and then managing, they have a limited number of games. We have 82 NBA games, but those players only get 50, so we have to kind of manage kind of how those guys get dispersed and how we use those games. Assignment players, I've done a lot of work in the G League, so one of the things that I also do is I sort of manage a lot of our assignments. So when we're sending a young player down to our minor league team, the Remix, it's making sure that process goes smoothly, that there's synergy between our coaches and their coaches, and then all the procedural stuff that is required of doing all that. There's a ton of paperwork and hoops and things that we have to sort of jump through. So my job is to sort of manage all of that. So that's kind of what we're doing in season. We're also scouting players, of course. That's always a part of what we do. But in the off season, it's more about guiding ownership and our general manager through what the off season looks like. So it's we're looking at extensions for our current players. We're looking at trades. We're looking at what we forecast moving forward, 3-4 years out, 5 years out, balancing economic shifts in the NBA where we have to balance and review the change in the in team salary and luxury tax and money, and we're also coming through draft pick details, building out these elaborate projects for ownership to sort of guide them and kind of walk them through step by step on what the plan is and how to eventually make the team better. So that's kind of what we do. And in general, I'm in season, I'm in the office by 8:15, drop my kids off. And then if it's a game day, the office kind of clears out probably around 2:30. At that time is when I try to get a workout in, and then head down to the arena by about 5 or 5:30, and then usually home by 10 or so. And that's on a game day. And then days that I'm off is nice. You're home by 4:30 or so to pick your kids up. And but yeah, it's the days vary quite a bit based on what we've got going on.
Okay. And so back to that question of, do you get to kind of mentor other people? Do you have interns? And what do you look for in interns?
Sure. So I don't have any interns anymore, but throughout the course of my career, I've had plenty. And I think that is one of the most rewarding parts of my job, is being able to teach and mentor some of these young, hungry kids that come in and want to learn and want to grow and get better. And that is incredibly rewarding to me. And I still get a little bit of that now, because even though our staff, we don't have interns at the moment, we do have some people that are kind of relatively new to this particular side of the NBA. So there is still a lot of mentoring and teaching that I get to do, particularly with my knowledge of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement and the salaries and the numbers and how they all work. can get pretty intricate, so I get a lot of questions. I get to really dig in with people on that, which is a blast. So that's one of the things that's super rewarding for me.
Okay, excellent. So what would you look for in an intern when you did get to hire them?
Generally, somebody who's been involved in sports at some level. Like the old sort of adage for us was we wanted to hire guys that were guys or gals that were either players, generally not stars, people who were, kind of the end of the bench, the workhorses, or their graduate assistants, or their team managers, because these people have been involved in sports and involved in a team. They kind of recognize the kind of the unique hierarchy that we have and just how basketball teams in general kind of work. So I think that's the type of person that we've looked for in the past. I would actually, if I was hiring an intern for my department at the moment, I would choose something completely different though. I would look for someone with a skill set that's really interesting, i.e. Coding or the ability to build statistical and analytical models. Okay. Those would be the kind of people that I would really be interested in now. Python, SQL, or another model building language, because that skill set is incredibly unique. And honestly, professional sports has not, in some areas, they haven't quite caught up to the rest of the world. And I think people with that skill set can be really successful in this industry, I think.
Okay, awesome, thank you. That was one thing that we did talk about a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And for you all, if you're like, I have no idea what he's talking about, go onto LinkedIn Learning and type in data analytics or data science, and Python, SQL, SQL, and R. Those are all different coding languages that you can learn. And even if you only take a couple of the LinkedIn Learning courses to get a little background knowledge, you don't have to get a certificate in it, but if you start to have an idea of how these things work, then you can decide kind of which area to follow if you want to keep going deeper into it and learn how to do the statistical models. Because I would say that data is everywhere and everything is data these days. And so data analysis and data science are two huge, huge career industries that are just going to keep growing over the years. So it's great to use your free LinkedIn Learning account that you won't have in August after you graduate. So use it now while you're here to learn some of that stuff. So thank you. All right, so Quinn, tell us about your kind of day-to-day.
Okay, so day-to-day is a little bit different now than it was, and so I'll kind of, since we're talking about sports, I'll kind of go back to track day-to-day.
Yeah.
Because teaching is obviously a lot different. So a typical day for, most of the time when you start off, you're going to be selling tickets. Like a lot of times, the only open positions are somewhere in sales. Sales can be cutthroat. You have a book of accounts, and they're very well protected for the people who are there, and then always the new people get whatever's left over. And usually that whatever's left over is really hard to kind of generate an income from, or to generate much sales from. That's why there's a lot of turnover, hence a lot of open positions. But it is a great way to kind of get your feet wet, is kind of get yourself introduced to folks, get your name in the company, and just try to keep your nose to the grindstone and working on it. So as far as an account executive position, we were required about 70 calls a day. I know stick and ball sports, sometimes it could be upwards of 90 to 100 phone calls a day, with a list of people, anyone who has ever bought a ticket from your team or attended a race. And then it's your job to kind of go after them and keep calling them and following through, and just being pleasantly persistent and just trying to get that sale, get them back to the track in any way, shape, or form that you can. And then so your day is 9 o'clock, 9 to 5 pretty much, but you're just in front of a CRM system or consumer relationship management system. There are all sorts of types out there, so whatever whatever team you end up with will have their own. But it's basically just a database on people. And whenever you buy a ticket or talk to people about tickets, they might be asking some random questions like, oh, who was your favorite player? What was the first game you attended? Just all this kind of background questions that seem very friendly and talkative, but at the same time, they're writing it all down to keep like a checklist so the next time they come back to you, they can reference those things, and you have some sort of familiarity with that person, and you feel more obliged to purchase. And so, that's typically on non-event days, and the season for racing especially, it basically goes by when an event's about to happen. So about 3 or 4 months prior to the race is when things start getting really busy, and then it like ticks down afterwards, and it's kind of quiet. You can take vacations, you're home at decent hours. But once the season starts picking up and a race is almost there, and then race day itself, for the month of May, for a good chunk of that, it was basically it's like I'll see you I'll see you afterwards. Because we had 2 back-to-back weekends, at Charlotte. So we had the All-Star Race and the Coke 600. And basically, that was another attractive thing about getting into motorsports is basically you create a city, you bring it to life with safety, with food, with parking, with seating, with entertainment, with teams and sanctioning bodies, and working with so many different assets to basically make this real for a day, and then it just disappears. And so it's really unique and different, that sort of just comes together, and you can see the fruits of your work, and then it's all just torn apart, and you get to do it all over again. It's different the next time around too. So that's kind of also the, when we say it's different day to day, you're just rebuilding it again, differently, because people's likes and dislikes, kind of start coming up, and times change, and people want to have more open luxury boxes, and they want luge boxes, and they want no seating, but they want to have things to do. And so you're changing the track layouts, you're changing seating arrangements, and you're trying to accommodate the fans and get ahead of trends to attract them to it. On the digital marketing side of things, it's basically also a 9 to 5, but just basically trying to figure out all this data that's out there. Google Analytics, there is so much data within Google Analytics that you have to figure out, okay, what am I actually looking at and what is actually useful? And that's the biggest challenge is trying to figure out your job and then what data you can pull from all this data to actually make it relevant and make it worthwhile to use. And that's sometimes the sticking point, and trying to convince your bosses that we should be looking at this data set, not that data set. And this ad that we created, hit really popular with this group of people versus this group, and this is the reason why. We should continue with that. So.
Did you ever create the ads, or somebody else created that?
Yeah, so we had a creative department that basically took our ideas. We had a group, inside the marketing department. We got together and we talked about, okay, what are we going to do? And basically for races, we figured out there are 3 different groups. So we intend to event, and you're probably not thinking about this, but there's the folks that just want to come for, as college students, a really cheap race where you can drink beer and have fun and just enjoy yourself. And so that messaging is free concerts, free parking, $25 tickets, come out, have fun. It's not about the race stars, it's not about the teams, it's not about the competition, it's strictly come out, have fun. And that's 18 to 25. Past that, you might have gotten married, you might start having a family, so you have different priorities. So in the next stage of, is kind of like the family messaging. Come out, make memories. When you came out with your uncle, your parents, your dad, and then bring your kids, do the same thing, rinse and repeat. And so that messaging is more family friendly, food deals, 2 hot dogs, 2 Cokes, and kind of discount rates of that kind of thing. Nature. And then the top end, past 35, it's relive those 18 to 25 years. Come on out, have fun, you actually have some money, now you can actually spend it, go get yourself a luxury suite, go bring the RV, have fun, connect with your buddies from college, and, live up the glory days before you, have a hernia or something. So.
I love that. Okay, so now what does day-to-day work like for you?
Day-to-day for me, it depends on when I have classes. So I teach 4 classes. In between that, so it's either interacting with students, basically just I teach motorsport history, I teach event and facility management, finance, social media, marketing, and then also introduction to motorsports.
Okay.
And so just depends on the semester what I'm teaching, but we also have a professional development class that we basically take students to races and then just do informational interviews pretty much throughout the race weekend.
Oh, that's
So we
awesome.
meet with teams, we get into the haulers, we meet with the personnel who are working the race, and then just talking with them about their job, what they do, how they got to where they were, and then what it takes to get to where they are.
Okay.
And so we do that 3 times a year. So we the Rolex 24 in Daytona in January, the Streets of St. Petersburg Grand Prix for the IndyCar season, and then the 4-wide Nationals at Charlotte Marsh at ZMAX Dragway at the end of the semester. So different sanctioning bodies, different motorsports genres, but just constant meetings, and then watch a little racing. So.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, if students are interested in working in any area of sports, what advice and suggestions do you have for them, Sean?
Say that one more time, Kristen.
Sure. So if students are interested in working in any area of sports, what suggestions and advice do you have for them?
I would say first thing is get involved in your collegiate sports team in some way, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, or whether it's a manager. That would be the first thing. I think if you want a career in sports, in general, you have to have some level of experience. And then after that, I would be hounding as many people that you could find, just to try to get informational interviews. If you're trying to get into the NBA, I would say you gotta know this really well. You gotta really study it. You gotta study the NBA game. You gotta study the college game. You gotta subscribe to analytics websites and be able to kind of speak the language, at least, enough to fake it, right? Stuff that takes you beyond the box score. You know what I mean? There's some really, really good stuff out there that you can get access to. But you got to be able to show some initiative. But I do think that between getting involved in your college program, setting up informational interviews, and then doing your own homework kind of on the back end, there's something there. And then also, like I said before, being able to walk into one of those information interviews or the phone call and have an interesting skill set, right? It's the coding for me. It's Python, it's R, it's SQL. It's how can I take large chunks of data and break it all down into a way that is digestible and meaningful. You come up with that, and I think that you have a chance. I think those are the things that I tell kids all the time. And they say, hey, what do you want? Sean, what should I do to get involved? How can I do it? And I always tell them the same thing, and that's exactly what I say. It's get involved, it's study the game incredibly well, whatever sport you're trying to get into, and have an interesting skill set.
Okay, awesome. Joe, what would you say?
I guess I'd say on top getting to know people, taking opportunities. I guess the thing that I could add on top of what Sean just said is don't be afraid to take an opportunity even if it takes you somewhere outside of the bubble, right? The internship that I did at the basketball camp was in Maryland. I know no one in Maryland. But I went there. I spent my summer in Frostburg, Maryland, the middle of nowhere. The only thing that was there is this camp, and is honestly the best thing to happen to that tiny little town. But it's for the summer, it's this little basketball mecca, right? And I guess it's just if you have an opportunity, go search them out. A lot of these internships, one of the best ways that I came across is with if you want to get into sports in general, like I know we got a lot of baseball guys here, is with these AA baseball teams, right? But if you're really like want to get sport specific, you know, chase your sport. But if you're just looking to get experience in general, baseball, minor league baseball hires and houses interns all the time. So if you're just looking to get any experience at all, that's a great way to do it. And they're looking to bring in like young people for these internships. So it's like if you don't have that much experience and you don't have much to say, that's a great place to look. If you have a little bit more experience, like if you're like my basketball guys or my soccer guys, like and you want to go chase something with like DC United or along the NBA route or something like that, then chase that. But it's just like take opportunities even if they push you beyond your comfort zones. Because I was a little bit hesitant at first, you know, Christendom bubble, right? But I couldn't be happier that I did. It was it was the best summer of my life.
Yeah. So I want to piggyback on that. There's one big website that I recommend you go to, and that is teamworkonline.com. And when I have looked on there, hundreds of internships have shown up. I feel like, I don't know if somebody's in this audience that I looked at it with just within the past like 2 months, but there are still internships for this summer on there. So if you are looking for sports, I would go there first because the internships are all over the country. And then Quinn, like you were talking about, that website has jobs as well, and so many of them are ticket sales, box office sales, that kind of stuff to get started. So I definitely recommend Teamwork Online.
If I could piggyback though, the free version doesn't work.
You
gotta pay. Like you're not getting anywhere if you do the free version. You gotta pay. Like I learned that the hard way.
Okay. Well, and come talk to me if you can't afford to make that work.
And also the job fair that I went to, that was through Teamwork Online.
That was what?
That was through Teamwork, that job fair that I went to.
Okay, excellent. So I'll have to look at that and maybe get on their email list to find out when those things happen. So, all right, Quinn, what would you suggest and recommend to our students wanting to get into sports?
Basically what has been said right so far is fantastic. I mean, it's knocking on those doors. It's figuring out kind of what you want to do. And that's what I really try to emphasize to my students, right, you know, who are kind of come up in motorsports and want to get into the industry. They have a passion, they have a knowledge, and they want to pursue it, but they just don't know how to get into it. And they honestly might not know exactly what they want to do within motorsports. Now, motorsports in general, you know, most people, you know, okay, let's see. How many different racing leagues are there in the U.S.? General question.
Not a clue.
Yeah, see?
No idea. No idea.
Okay, well, okay, now I'm feeling really bad. Okay,
F1
so
count?
how many people have heard of the NHRA?
Couple
Wow, crickets. NASCAR, hopefully.
Yes.
All right, you've heard of NASCAR. IMSA, SCCA, World of Outlaws, Monster Jam. Okay.
Yeah, baby.
All right, yeah, I've heard of these things. All right, so every one of these sanctioning bodies either sanctions races that are held across the country. NASCAR in particular is a sanctioning body. They don't own any teams themselves. They do, as of 2 years ago, kind of reabsorb nearly half the tracks in the country. And so they run tracks and the sanctioning body themselves. But everyone who's out there has their own team. You know, they have multiple cars or single cars. They all have people working in the shop. They all have people who are accountants. They all have people who are salespeople. They have marketers. They have social media people. They have operations folks. They have event folks. And that's every single team. Now, every weekend, there's 36 teams in a NASCAR race, and then there are even more in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, which are feeder series to that. Each one of those teams has the same amount of people. And you can see it starts growing and growing. That's only the teams. Every facility to go to has the same amount of people just working there. And so it becomes a very large, but also small and contained group of people who work these events. And, you know, just going to them, even up the road, Winchester has a track just right outside the airport. If you want to see a slice of Americana and what it really means to, like, you know, backwoods redneck racing, just go there on a Friday or Saturday night. Buy a pit pass and just, you know, sit back and watch. It's great. You'll never see such determination. If they blow an engine, there are guys back there trying to find another one, just ripping it out, replacing it, and just getting him into the race within like 45 minutes. And this is just with headlamps and no real equipment whatsoever, but it's just through pure grit and determination of getting out there to win maybe $500. There's no real point or monetary value other than you beat the other guy. And it's a very rich culture that revolves around motorsports, even from the grassroots level all the way up to the top of Formula One, NASCAR, if you want to go over to Europe and such. And so this getting to know people, getting your face out there, going to a track, volunteering, say, hey, can I help out? What can I do? If you want to push a broom, and at least you're there, you're present, and that even starts, ingratiating you to the, that person or that facility. And, keep a smile on your face, you never know who's looking. 12, 14 hours a day, just keep smiling,
Yeah.
And, you'll make it, and, you'll find out if you really want this, because that's what you have to have when you get into sports. You have to really want it. So.
Okay. So if you can believe it, we've already been talking for an hour. So I want to turn it over to you all to ask questions. I saw Gabrielle earlier. Where did she go? There she is. She's got a microphone. So who has a question for our guests? Raise your hand and Gabrielle will come to you. Down front here,
Shocker.
John Paul.
Thanks, guys, for speaking tonight. Sean, I have two questions for you. So first of all, what analytics report would you recommend subscribing to get, the information beyond box scores? And then second of all, can anybody stop UConn right now?
He said, can anybody
Sorry,
stop UConn?
what was the second part?
He said, can anybody stop UConn right now?
Oh, wow. Okay, good question. So the first one, there is a website called cleaningtheglass.com. It's run by a very good friend of mine named Ben Falk. He is kind of one of the kind of new age godfathers, believe it or not, of NBA analytics. It is tremendous. He has broken down these numbers in a completely different way. He writes incredibly well. He writes these articles that break stuff down and explain in further detail what he's talking about. It is referenced on every NBA broadcast really that is out there now.
Wow.
Just the other day I was watching the Knicks, I think, and one of the announcers goes, yeah, and per Cleaning the Glass, it's got this and that. This guy scores at a 99th percentile rate at the rim, something like that. So he just it's quotable. It's kind of the new vernacular of the NBA is stuff that Ben Falk talks about a ton, and you can kind of go to his website and play with it on cleaningtheglass.com. That's the premier one, I would say. And the second question you have in regards to UConn, watch out for Purdue. They got a big kid who's pretty good.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next question. Who's got one? Don't be shy.
Gosh, we're that boring.
See people pointing.
Oh.
Anybody? Yes.
Come on.
One up here. We've got another one.
This is a question for Sean. Can you walk me through your process for evaluating a player in a contract negotiation or trade?
Okay, so could you hear that, Sean?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Try again, like right into the microphone, because this microphone will pick him up. Closer.
Can you walk me through your process, what you look for when you're evaluating a player before a contract negotiation or a trade?
Okay. Can you walk through the process of how you evaluate a player before a contract negotiation or a trade?
Oh, man. Tremendous question. Great question. It's circumstantial, and it is player by player, to be completely honest. Man, it's a really good one.
He might have to email you.
Yeah, you might have to email. But I think in general, it's you're always evaluating players' fit on your roster, and then you're evaluating the market for that player. Should that player be a free agent? You're evaluating how much money you have to spend. You're evaluating what parameters you have in order to re-sign this player, and then what are the consequences or the repercussions of doing so. And then going through player health is another huge one when you go about evaluating a player and whether or not to enter into a contract negotiation or an extension. I think that is really kind of prevalent when it comes to veterans. Rookie scale extensions are a little different. So the way the NBA works is if you get picked in the first round, you have a set contract. It's a 2-year contract with 2 team options on the back end. So essentially, if you're a good player, an NBA team could control your rights as a rookie for the first 4 years, and then have an ability to re-sign you to a deal potentially 6 years in length, up to 5 years in length. So you can control a player for 9 years. But I think when you're looking at bringing in a new player versus evaluating a player that you already have under contract and you've kind of drafted them and groomed them, you kind of look at it a little bit through a different lens. And most of it is still sort of kind of prognosticating what a player's career can be versus what a player's career is. When you talk about rookie, young players versus veterans. But again, a lot of the same things go into it. It's injury history, it's market, it's what have other players at that player's position got in a negotiation. And sometimes you get into a situation where you have a player that you really like. Maybe you don't like him to the level of other teams do, but you end up having to match what another team would pay that player simply because you don't want to lose him for nothing. So it's extremely unique. Often agent relationships come into play, certainly. Relationship with coach, relationship with and fit on your roster. So yeah, there's a plethora of things, but I would say it's unique to every player, but that's a terrific question.
Okay, awesome, thank you. All right, who else has a question? Yeah, right back here. Gabrielle's right behind you.
This is for Quinn.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex.
So Quinn, would you say that you had a passion for automotive, whatever it's called, racing, when you were in college? Or did you develop that when you said that you stopped at the race track and Lisa got after you? Would you say you developed that passion, or were you into that in college?
I'd say I always had it kind of in the background, but being out here in Front Royal, there's not much in the way of racing. I mean, Richmond's not that far away. Martinsville is another one that's kind of close. But, beyond that, it's also having people around you who are willing to travel like 5 or 6 hours to go to a race or an event. It's a lonely drive, so you want to go with friends. But past that, I enjoyed being around. It's I kind of go back to the bubble in a way, but it also kind of get more philosophical, because that's what we do here at Christendom too. But it's also a servant's heart mentality. So I say that is that you basically are working toward creating an event that people attend and they really enjoy, and try to, and then come out of it with this experience that can be a touch point in their lives. And so when you're doing this and when you're creating this event, you're really just kind of putting yourself into it, and you're doing everything possible to make it as best as you can at that moment. And there's really you don't get to see the smiles on people's faces. I mean, you might get a fan or two come up and say, that was fantastic, we really loved it, it was a great time, thank you so much for this. But 99% of the time, people come, they have a good experience, they'll talk about it afterwards and say they had a great time, but you'll never get that personal satisfaction of like having someone say that to you, you know? So in a way, you know, just being selflessly giving of yourself, and it feels good, you know? You know, just putting your whole self into something, creating something that's unique and different every single time, and just kind of putting it out to the world to enjoy. And so, you know, that's why I really enjoyed about motorsports, you know, is that, you know, 100,000 people show up for one thing, you know, and, you know, and go home, you know, and it's cool. It was a really neat experience.
Awesome, thank you. All right, other questions? While you're thinking, I just want to touch on the fact that within sports, and I think this is true with so many different industries, I love that you guys are saying chase your passion, chase your sport. I want you to do that no matter what you decide to go into, but think about what skills you have. So you can go work in marketing in the sport that you like. So marketing might be your skill, or finance and accounting might be, or the data analytics might be your skill that you have, and you can do it in the context of a sport, working at a school, coaching, mentoring. You can do it, you know, I gave the example in EFL to one of the classes this semester about working, if skiing is your passion, you can work at a ski resort. You can work for a ski clothing company. You can represent a professional skier. And so there are all these different ways that you can get into the sport or any other kind of industry that you're interested in by finding your interest and your specific skill set that you have. And so I think that has come to light a lot looking at Teamwork Online and seeing all the different jobs that are within these different, you know, organizations, especially the bigger sports organizations. But you can go into there and you can do payroll. They have somebody who does HR and hiring and firing, and they have people who do, you know, the counseling and the advertising, the marketing, the finances, et cetera. So if you want to work in sports, it doesn't have to just be that you are the athlete in the sport or that you are doing one of your jobs, but you can be doing any other area that you have that skill in. So I just wanted to point that out. Other questions that you all have? No, you guys are a quiet group tonight. Well, thank you all for being here. Our guests will hang out for a little bit if you want to come talk to them one-on-one. And just an announcement, tell your friends who have Wednesday night classes. I will be sending an email tomorrow, so actually tell your friends who don't check their emails that there will be another event that will count for EFL credit on Monday, April 22nd. We are actually bringing in Justin Schneer, who is the founder of Tractor Beverage, which are the delightful drinks that you guys have in the Commons. He's going to come talk, so I'm going to interview him. So that'll be on a Monday, so I know that people have Wednesday night classes or work Wednesdays, or they don't read their emails, so tell your friends. Give our guests a round of applause. This has been so fascinating.